The clothes still fit, but they don't feel right anymore. That is the most precise way to describe what you have been experiencing. Not a crisis, not a collapse, but the quiet, persistent, slightly unsettling sensation of a life that used to fit your shape and now, without anything dramatic changing, fits differently. The relationship you've been in for years that has started to feel like a role you're performing rather than a life you're living. The career path that made complete sense 3 years ago and now produces a specific kind of Sunday evening dread that you've been trying to explain away as normal. The city, the apartment, the social circle, the version of yourself you present to the world, all of it technically intact, all of it technically functioning, but carrying a subtle wrongness you can feel in your body even when your mind insists everything is fine. You have not been falling apart. You have been outgrowing. And the discomfort of outgrowing is almost indistinguishable from the discomfort of something being wrong, which is why so many people in this specific experience spend months or years trying to fix what is not broken, rather than recognizing that what they are feeling is not a malfunction. It is a signal. The signal that the container is no longer the right size. That the version of the life you have been living was built for a version of you that you are actively in the process of becoming someone larger than. The discomfort has been trying to tell you something. And in 4 days, the cosmic event that has been building this pressure in you is going to arrive. What has felt like vague restlessness is about to reveal itself as preparation. And the person you are becoming, the one the discomfort has been pointing toward, is about to have the most significant energetic support for their emergence that the decade has produced. Uranus is changing signs. In 4 days. For the first time in 7 years. This is not the kind of astrological event that the casual observer notices. It does not produce a single dramatic moment visible in one day's headlines. What it produces is a fundamental, sustained, deep-structure change in the areas of life it governs. A change that operates across years, that touches everything, that rewrites the rules in ways that feel impossible before they happen and inevitable after. Uranus spends approximately 7 years in each sign. When it moves, entire life areas that have been under its specific pressure are released, and entire new areas, previously stable or overlooked, begin to transform. Uranus is the planet of disruption, of revolution, of radical and sometimes startling change. It is the force that breaks what is no longer working open, not gently, not with warning, but with the precision of a system that identifies where the pressure has been building longest and creates the release. Things that have felt permanent reveal themselves as temporary. Things that seemed impossible suddenly become the most inevitable thing in the world. Uranus does not ask whether you are ready. It moves, and the movement creates the readiness. The weight of what is arriving in 4 days is not small. It is the kind of event that people look back at from the distance of several years and say, everything changed around that time. Not because of any single dramatic occurrence, but because the underlying rules of several important areas of life changed simultaneously, and the change was so foundational that the surface of things could not stay the same for long. You are 4 days from that event, and the discomfort you have been feeling, the subtle wrongness, the clothes that fit differently quality of your current life, is not coincidental to the timing. It is the pressure of what is building reaching its visible surface in your daily experience. 7 years. That is how long Uranus has been in Taurus. And if you look back at your own life across the last 7 years, honestly, specifically, without the editing that makes the past feel more coherent and more intentional than it actually was, you will see the specific character of what Uranus in Taurus was doing. Taurus governs material reality, money, security, the physical structures of daily life, the values that underlie what you invest in and what you build toward. For 7 years, Uranus has been disrupting and revolutionizing those areas. Think about what shifted in your relationship to security, to money, to how you work and earn and build stability across the last 7 years. The career changes that arrived suddenly and changed everything. The housing situations that shifted in ways you didn't anticipate. The values that came under scrutiny, what you used to think was worth working for, and how that changed. The ways that the idea of a stable, structured, building toward something life was alternately supported and completely upended. The relationship between your sense of safety and your sense of possibility, and how those two things came into conflict repeatedly in ways that didn't resolve easily. That was Uranus and Taurus at work, not in your life specifically or against you personally, across every life, shaking the foundations of material reality and forcing everyone to confront what they were building, why, and whether the structures they were creating were genuinely theirs or inherited from a previous era's understanding of what security was supposed to look like. Now that work is complete. Taurus has been transformed by 7 years of Uranian pressure. And Uranus, having finished what it came to do in the territory of material reality, values, and the physical structures of life, is moving into Gemini. Gemini governs communication, connection, the way minds meet, the way ideas travel between people, the way you express yourself, and how the world receives that expression. It governs learning and curiosity, the conversations that shape who you become, the relationships built on genuine mental and communicative resonance, the ability to say what you actually mean and be understood in the way you actually intend. For 7 years, starting in 4 days, Uranus is going to be disrupting, revolutionizing, and fundamentally transforming those areas. This means that the specific discomfort you have been feeling, the relationship that feels like a role being performed rather than a life being lived, the professional context where you are not being understood or not being given space to express what you actually bring, the version of yourself you show the world that has started to feel like a costume rather than skin, that discomfort is about to become action. Because Uranus in Gemini will not allow the structures of communication and connection and self-expression that have been built on outdated patterns to remain comfortable. It will create the pressure, the friction, the disruption that forces the question, are you actually saying what you mean? Are the people around you actually seeing who you are? Is the way you are communicating yourself to the world in alignment with who you have been becoming? The connections that were built on old patterns of relating, the ones where the dynamic was established years ago, where the role you play and the role the other person plays have been fixed in ways that no longer match who either of you currently are. Those connections are going to be tested in the next 7 years. Not necessarily ended, but tested, pressured to update, given the specific Uranian friction that forces either genuine evolution or honest release. And simultaneously, in the space that the outdated patterns either update or vacate, new connections are going to arrive. Suddenly, unexpectedly, with the specific quality that Uranian connections always carry, the feeling of instant recognition, of encountering someone who actually sees the version of you that has been becoming rather than the version of you that has been presenting. The conversations that change how you think, the collaborations that make you more yourself rather than less. The people who appear from directions you weren't watching and become, in a very short time, some of the most important of your life. This is what Uranus in Gemini brings, not just to your relationships, to your entire way of moving through the world as someone who thinks, communicates, learns, and connects. The next 7 years are the years in which who you actually are becomes increasingly impossible to keep contained in the containers that who you used to be built for it. For days is the window you have to position yourself consciously rather than reactively. And the difference between those two postures, conscious versus reactive, is the difference between experiencing the Uranus ingress as a disruption that happens to you and experiencing it as an opening that you are ready to move through. This is not about having a plan. Uranus does not work through plans. It disrupts plans, which is the point. It is about being conscious of what is coming, of what it means, of why the discomfort you have been feeling makes sense in the context of what is arriving. Because the person who understands that the clothes that fit differently sensation has been Uranian pressure building toward a sign change, who understands that the restlessness they have been feeling is preparation rather than malfunction, who understands that the 7 years of Uranus in Taurus have been completing their work in the territory of material reality, while Gemini's territory of communication and connection is about to be opened for the most significant transformation of the decade. That person encounters the first disruptions of Uranus in Gemini as confirmation rather than confusion. The disruptions are coming whether you are ready or not. That is the nature of Uranus. But the person who is ready, who has been watching the pressure build, who has understood the discomfort as signal, who has been doing the internal work of acknowledging what no longer fits and being willing to let it transform, that person receives the disruptions as the specific, precisely timed catalysts they are. The relationship dynamic that shifts is the invitation to the more genuine version. The professional disruption is the door opening onto the work that actually matches who they are. The communication that becomes impossible to suppress any longer is the beginning of the expression that the world has been waiting for. Those who are caught by surprise, who have been managing the discomfort without understanding its source, who encounter the Uranian disruptions as random misfortune rather than as the beginning of the most significant 7-year transformation of their adult life, will be reactive. They will try to restore the previous arrangement rather than recognizing that the previous arrangement was never going to survive the pressure that has been building, and that what is replacing it is more genuinely theirs than what it is replacing. You have 4 days to choose which of those two people you are going to be. Not by having all the answers, by understanding what is coming. The discomfort you have been feeling makes sense now. That is the specific thing I most want you to take from this moment before the ingress arrives. The relationship that feels like a role. The career that produces Sunday dread. The version of yourself that has been feeling like a costume. The conversations you have been wanting to have that the current containers of your life have not been making safe to have. The ideas you have been thinking that the current structures of your daily experience have not been making easy to express. All of it, every specific instance of the life that no longer fits sensation, has been Uranian pressure. Building toward this. Building toward the moment when the planet that creates the pressure moves into the sign that governs the areas where the pressure has been most concentrated in you. You are not falling apart. The discomfort was not evidence that you chose wrong or built wrong, or that the life you created was a mistake. It was evidence that you are a person who has been growing faster than the containers you built in a previous chapter, and that the growing has reached the point where the containers need to either expand or be replaced. And in 4 days, the most powerful force in the solar system for container expansion and replacement is arriving in the specific territory where your containers have been feeling most wrong. What comes in 4 days is the beginning of who you are actually becoming. The version of you that can say what you actually mean, in the actual relationships that actually match who you are, in the actual work and expression and communication that actually reflects the person who has been building beneath the surface of the one who has been presenting. That person is not far. That person is 4 days from the beginning of their 7-year emergence. And the discomfort that has been building, the signal that has been trying to get your attention across the months and weeks of the restlessness, was simply that person asking for room. Give them room. Stay conscious. Pay attention in the next 4 days to what in your life begins to shift, to crack, to reveal itself as something that was always going to change. Welcome the disruption when it comes as the confirmation it is, that the building pressure has reached its release point, and that what releases is not loss but expansion, and that the expansion is into the territory of who you were always going to become. Uranus is coming, and it is coming for the specific purpose of making sure that the life you live in the next 7 years is genuinely yours. Get ready. The most interesting chapter of your decade starts in 4 days.